Hello everyone, welcome again to another day of launch week. And today we have Shivanshu with us. Hello Shivanshu, how are you doing?
Hi Ankit, I'm great. How are you?
All good, man. Can you give us a brief about like what you do at SigNoz and what is the cool feature that you have been working on?
Sure. So I've been taking care of building some innovative features on top of OpenTelemetry.
Hmm.
And for this launch week, especially launch week 4, we are going live with two new features. One is API monitoring and another is trace funnels. In this session, we'll dive deeper into API monitoring.
Got it. Awesome. Can you give us a brief about like what is this feature? What is the user story behind it, and what are the use cases that a user would look to solve here?
Sure. So fundamentally, if we look at the telemetry data that is being collected, it is very hard to make sense of it, and we see a lot of our end users are creating dashboards where they are trying to figure out client to server calls, and if we try to zoom in into it, it's basically from the client what all endpoints you are interacting is of very high value to end users. So that's why we have built this end-to-end highly correlated API monitoring feature where you have all those things inbuilt in the product. So if you are
Mhm.
using OpenTelemetry, you can just go to API monitoring, and with a lot of correlations to the corresponding services, corresponding traces, and the error logs, you can just see everything in just one place.
Got it, got it. Seems like a very interesting feature. To rephrase, like, do we use OpenTelemetry semantics to create these metrics and then further correlations down into traces?
Yes, exactly. So we utilize the latest semantic conventions, and we also support the older semantic conventions from the agents. And we derive those attributes which are important for the third-party API calls, and everything is done on top of traces. So it's sort
Got
of deriving key metrics from traces and then doing the monitoring on top of it.
it, got it, got it. So, what would be simple user flows or user use cases that they are going to solve from this?
Yes, so major problems that, as I said, is like when you have a microservices architecture, or even if a monolith architecture, and you
Hmm.
are making a network request to any external API, there's a
Hmm.
lot of unknowns there, right? And dashboards are not enough for it. So that's where where this feature helps is giving you everything in a single page.
Hmm.
Second is you can actually share the audit reports with the third party vendor. So whatever is the P99, whatever the error rate, you can just download that audit report and share that with the with the vendor. Another is rate limiting. If your API is getting rate limited due to some reason, you
Hmm.
wouldn't know which services are impacted and what are the error codes, what is the response. It just make it very easy with the integration with the API monitoring. You can understand if there is any rate limiting happening at any given domain or given endpoint. And
Hmm.
lastly, I would say it helps in understanding all the integrations that you have, what
Hmm.
services are internal, what services are external,
Hmm.
because it gives you all the client and server calls and break it down into the terms of endpoints. So it just becomes very easy for you to understand those interactions.
Got it, got it. Very interesting. Like I faced a couple of scenarios myself where, first of all, I wanted to know whether my service was impacted due to any external service that I was calling. Is my service slow due to sync call to an external service or endpoint that I do not control as a service owner? So that was important to me. And which trace paths were um, showing errors and specifically photo nines, like if I would say a vendor endpoint that we are paying to started throwing rate limiting errors, which of my services are getting impacted, right? I would like to know that from the higher
Yeah.
level view.
So that is
Got it.
basically the first class citizen in our domain view. You would
Hmm.
be basically able to see for that domain what all services are calling that domain and calling a respective endpoint.
Awesome. Why don't we just dive into the demo and see the cute, cool thing that we have built out?
Sure, let me share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes.
So as you can see, we have added another section here which says
Hmm.
API monitoring. Once you go there,
Mhm.
You can just out of the box see all the domains which any of your services are calling. So this is like last 1 day of data. You can sort it based on, let's say I'm sorting it right now on based of error rate,
Mhm.
and then you see what all endpoints are in use, what is the count for that, what is the average latency, what is request uh, operations per second, and then you can also apply many different filters. And if you are not interested in internal API calls, or if you do not want to show internal APIs, you can just hide those domains, and it will show you all the other domains which are not internal. So let me
Got it.
start diving into one of the domain. So let's pull everything here. I see there's some error in this particular domain. I can just
Mhm.
go and see it is calling two endpoints, this reviews and details. And in the details, I see there is, okay, basically I see all the calls. So
Mhm.
let's try to understand this page in detail.
Mhm.
So what's happening here is, the domain is internal, you get the IP, and then you get the count of all the external APIs, how many calls have been made in the last 1 day to this domain, what is the average latency error percentage in last usage. And since I have selected an endpoint, I'm seeing that as a filter here. But let me try to
Mhm.
remove that endpoint and just, it should give me all the information about that particular domain.
Mhm.
So this particular domain is being called by one service. I will also show an example where it is being called by multiple services.
Mhm.
And then you have call response status segregated with response status code. So if you want to
Mhm.
see all the 200 calls or the 5 axis calls, you can just uh, click here and see. You can also see the latency, and you can also try to zoom in into it. And once you do that, you get the details around, okay, 503 is happening, and these
Mhm.
many are the number of calls.
Mhm.
Similarly, you see rate over time, latency over time. So let me also show you with some another service. Okay, here I see less error rate,
Mhm.
and it is calling only one endpoint. And so this is the OTel demo service, right? And
Mhm.
as you know, it calls another service, send order confirmation. But
Mhm.
if I go here and look at all the endpoint stats, I see there are one dependent service for it.
Mhm.
Let me try to maybe, okay. So let's see what the third tab is for, top 10 errors. So if
Mhm.
there are errors with some status message, it would just show up right here for that
Mhm.
domain and all the endpoints. And the toggle is by default enabled, which means if there is any status message, it would show the message. If you remove that toggle, you would see all the errors. Right now, there is only errors with status message. If
Okay.
I click here and go here, I just get all the traces with that particular status code and status message.
Mhm.
You have that correlation navigation right from the product. And if you are here and you want to maybe look at some, let me switch it to, let's say, latency. If I want to take a look at a particular time and then go and look at the traces, that's also I can do.
Mhm.
Similarly, for the number of calls, the trace navigation is there.
Got it.
Now, now
It should be
latency,
possible to
yeah.
go from error throwing, like APIs that are throwing errors and go to the corresponding traces, right?
Yes. So if you come here and you see there is an error for this order confirmation,
Mhm.
and there's an error for with this error message. If you click on this, it takes you to the corresponding trace view. It
Mhm.
applies the domain name and URL filters, and you
Mhm.
get the traces. If I go here and see, that particular span should have error in it.
Got it. Interesting.
So it basically helps you like visualize and understand all the calls in a way that matters to you. So right
Mhm.
now, if I were to understand this big trace call, right, that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
But but in like practical scenarios, I'm only interested in the client to upstream server calls, and there's an error happening there. So it makes
Hmm.
it so easy. You can just pick the domain name and pick the endpoint, and from there you try to figure out what's happening with the error.
Hmm. Got it.
Another thing that I can probably share. Let's take a look at some another example. So okay, so if I go here, I see there are two endpoints in use
Hmm.
for the metadata.google.internal call. And if I see the endpoint stats for the domain, I see there are two dependent services. And it also gives me the distribution of calls. So out of eight external calls, six calls were from the front end service and two calls from the payment service,
Got it.
and that gives you the distribution among different services. And from there you can actually go and click and go to the service page. Basically we have the services APM monitoring page. Here
Hmm.
you can see and understand what's happening with the underlying dependent services. So in some cases, so for example here also, this is some internal endpoint calling. As you can see, we are calling
Hmm.
compute metadata v1 instance zone, and
Got it.
then again we get the corresponding
Got it. We
services.
got a pretty good idea. Like we can see the list of domains and their aggregated red stats in the landing page. We can filter by the left-hand side filters. And then when we want to go dive deeper into one of those domains, we'll click on it. And then this is the detail page that we get. And it has different sections where you can see the red metrics, errors, drill downs into different things, errors, latency, and RPS, and you can see like which are the dependent services, what are the calls, and you can go jump to traces from there, right? In short
Yeah.
and crisp.
Yes.
Awesome.
Exactly.
We can stop showing the demo, I think, and would love to know like what was the engineering looking like behind the scenes, and uh, whether there was any product decision that we took.
Sure. I think we
It's
missed.
okay to, I think, you stop sharing the screen, or do you want to continue sharing?
I want to share one thing. After
Hmm.
that, we can start discussing the engineering perspective of it. So,
Cool.
if we have seen this demand just after we launched the feature, we
Hmm.
just went GA this Wednesday, and we
Hmm.
are seeing demand from our users, and we have included one of the demand in the product. So, if you
Hmm.
are in the APM page, so let's say
Hmm.
you are in the services list page and you select a service, and you already see this external metrics page here, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gives you all the external calls, right? One of the demand
Yes.
from our users is, can we navigate directly from here to the API monitoring page? Because maybe they are interested in, let's say there is some RPS increase here, or there is some error
Right.
here. They can just click here, and they can either go to traces, or they can either go to API monitoring. If they click on API monitoring, they land on that particular domain with the endpoint selected and with the right filters applied.
Got it. Pretty cool, I
Yeah.
think. So we have the service name already selected, the time range already selected, and the domain also already selected, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
So that's empowers the correlation, end-to-end correlation in the future.
Yes, that was pretty exciting, the last one.
Yeah.
Sure, cool. I would love to talk more anything around the engineering that you guys built or the product decision that you took. Like, just wanted to get a hindsight, what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, sure. So I think the general philosophy at SigNoz is like whenever we are launching a feature or whenever we are building a feature, the thing that is in mind is how it's going to impact users, how it's going to help solve the user's problem, right? So one of the product decision that we took here is having the correlation as like the first class citizenship.
Hmm.
Basically, in every page there should be a way to go to the corresponding things, right? So in my
Yeah.
case, go to the corresponding services, go to the corresponding error logs, go to corresponding traces. So the making correlation as a built-in first class citizen for the third party API monitoring was a product call that we took. Another
Got it.
thing that we took is supporting everything on top of latest semantic conventions, but
Hmm.
not only that, also support the old semantic conventions, right? So we see there's a lot of work happening in the upstream semantic conventions and making them
Hmm.
standard. But if
Hmm.
we look at the agents, the underlying agents which implements those semantic conventions, they are not up to date with the latest semantic conventions, right? So,
Got it.
for example, Java agent might be sending data with some old semantic conventions, but Python
Hmm.
agent might be sending
I
semantic
see.
data with latest semantic conventions. So we support all the semantic conventions.
Hmm.
Not today, we support a specific version of semantic conventions, but we are going to support all the semantic conventions.
Got it. Got it. So what would be a like good upcoming thing that we can expect out of it?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we are again hearing from our customers is having ability to create edits directly from the API monitoring.
Yes. That is
This
going to be pretty interesting. Like if I am able to just create alerts from those beautiful metrics and traces charts and directly it notifies me whenever a vendor is has overshooted in their latency or the error rates, right?
Yeah. So this is like one of the very good feedback that we got from our users.
Mm-hmm.
One thing in the roadmap. Another thing
Mm-hmm.
is, as I said, full support for all the semantic conventions. Right now, we don't fully support all the semantic conventions, but we want to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Irrespective of what agent you are using, what language you are using, it should work out
Mm-hmm.
of the box for you.
Got it. Pretty interesting. To get me right about the talk we did about the semantic conventions, you mean like OpenTelemetry semantics is evolving at a rate that is faster than what the different language SDKs are able to adopt, and hence we see ambiguities in the different attributes that we use for extracting out these external API calls, right? Is it on the similar lines?
Yes, exactly. So if we look
Mm-hmm.
at the semantic conventions, it's more of a theory
Mm-hmm.
on front, but the agents which actually implements it are like trying to be compatible with this latest semantic conventions. But
Mm-hmm.
if like practically what's happening is all the agents are like not up to date with the semantic conventions, and the semantic conventions has deprecated a lot of attributes.
I see.
So practically we
Got it.
see like there are attributes which are not there in semantic conventions, but agents are using it, and we support most of them.
Got it. Got it. And in future, I think we will support more and more and make it more compatible to different
Yeah.
semantics of OpenTelemetry. Awesome. This was a very interesting feature according to me, and I think they will definitely get some user loves and will get feedback from the users. Any last words would you like to talk to say to your audience and the Janta who is watching the launch week?
Yes. So I think one of the engineering aspects that we didn't cover, maybe we can try to cover that. That
Mm-hmm.
may be helpful for our users. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the thing that we did to make it work with different semantic conventions and make the queries faster is
Mm-hmm.
to have a dedicated ClickHouse column for it. And
Mm-hmm.
at the ingestion, we do something to make it compatible with all the semantic conventions.
Mm-hmm.
That's like something we did on the engineering side. And as an end user, what I would say is just try out the products.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is open source, and just
Yes.
if you see any errors, join our community and like call out to us. We'll be happy to fix it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shivanshu. Thank you, folks, for joining for this episode of the launch week. Feel free to reach out in our Slack community and create issues in our GitHub repository around this feature, and would love to see few responses from the community. Bye bye. See you.
Bye bye.